And the first part of this reading is entitled, The Plot Against Jesus. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they plotted to arrest Jesus in some sly way and kill him. "But not during the feast," they said, "or there may be a riot among the people." Jesus anointed at Bethany. While Jesus was in Bethany, in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "Why this waste?" they asked. "This perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Amen.
So we're in that time of year, Halloween, All Saints, All Souls, Remembrance. How does all of this sit with you? What does it mean to you? It's a time of year when we focus particularly on remembering and on the eternal dimension of our life and faith. What does it mean to you to remember? Are there certain things that call forth memories? Maybe certain places, or tastes, or smells, or sounds, or even words that trigger a particular kind of memory. Whenever I have tinned tomato soup, Heinz of course, so there are other varieties, but whenever I have that, I remember my grandma because she always served it when we went for Saturday lunch, or maybe not always, but that's how I remember it from a long time ago. Or whenever I hear 1970s pop music, I feel like I'm back waiting in our hallway in my school uniform, looking out of the window for my best friend, Catherine, as she would walk down the hill from the other side of the village and call for me on the way to school. And my mum was in the kitchen where this pop music was coming from, chuntering away. You know what chuntering is down here, do you? Yeah, that's what she was doing. Oh, she's getting later and later. You'll never get to school on time and all of this. Well, she never was late. We were never late to school. Or then again, fruit trees with ripe fruit that smells so beautifully of what they're holding. The first manse that we had was built on an old orchard, and we still had some of the trees and fruit bushes in the garden, and we always had lots of fruit. It's funny, isn't it, how memories are selective and what triggers what. I must have had Heinz tomato soup thousands of times, but it doesn't remind me of anyone else except my grandma, and I wonder what she would think if she knew that that was the thing that reminded me of her. It's like certain things kind of hang as markers in time, like bookmarks that you leave in a certain page because there's an interesting phrase that you want to remember or a nice word that you want to come back to. Memory is very important in both Jewish and Christian thinking. When we take communion, we remember that Jesus said, "Do this in memory of me." And so it's worth thinking a bit more deeply, I think, about this idea of memory and remembering. The prime example of it, of course, is the Jewish Passover festival. And I don't know whether you've ever taken part in a Jewish Passover, but I've been privileged to share in one quite a few times. First of all in Cambridge for a few years, and then later in North London. As the story of the Passover is enacted through the various meals, it is believed that the events are brought right into the present. They're actually real and present now, and you can feel your ancestors with you. This is triggered by collective memory, and people share with their ancestors in the events that happened then and the prayers that are happening now. So when Catholic churches at Mass say that the bread and wine are actually the body and blood of Christ, transubstantiation, that's where that kind of thinking begins. And for us too, who perhaps don't take the bread and wine, body, blood thing quite as literally, there's still something incredibly powerful, isn't there, about that story being continually reenacted here and in places of worship throughout the world. And as we share, we perceive that we are linked with other people from the past and the present and even yet to come. A member of a youth group once said to me, "Why does it have to be bread and wine? If we use Coca-Cola and crisps, would it be any different?" Well, that's a question that goes right to the heart of quite a few things. And I know what my answer was at the time. I wonder what yours would be. And if you haven't thought about it, maybe that's something that you would like to think about. So now, at this point in the sermon, I want to turn to our gospel reading, Matthew 26, 1-13, which itself is set at the Passover. It's an interesting little story, this, isn't it, of Jesus and the woman pouring perfume over him. It exists in various versions in the gospel texts, and I think it contains many sermons. But in this one, I want to focus on verse 13. What she has done will be told in memory of her, said Jesus. This is an extremely powerful thing to say in the context of the Passover and the Last Supper. This idea of in memory of her. When Jewish people die, one of the traditional prayers is, "May her or his memory be for a blessing." And if you go to visit a Jewish family after the funeral, that's one of the things you say when you leave the house, "May his or her memory be for a blessing." It's a wonderful thing to hear said of someone. So the woman with the perfume will have this story told in memory of her, says Jesus, and we have told it here again this morning. Is it a blessing? Does it bless you to hear her story? How do you understand that phrase? Is her memory a blessing? All of these things make me wonder what people remember about me. Friends from the past that I haven't seen for a long time. Or the collective memory of previous circuits when I was known as the young minister for so many years. What are their memories of me? And what will people remember of me in the future? And are those memories, or will those memories be a blessing? I hope so. For the moment, I try to make good memories for myself and my family and other people, things that will sustain and bring joy and hope. I wonder who the woman in the story was. There are various versions. Maybe she was Mary, maybe Mary Magdalene, maybe Mary, the sister of Martha and Lazarus, maybe Mary somebody else or somebody else altogether, who knows. But her memory blesses us because it's part of the story of Jesus. And so are we. Amen.